What's going on, guys? So today's going to be a really interesting video. We're out here at the eTrailer corporate headquarters. A lot of stuff going on out here. We're preparing for Tow Week, which is essentially the opportunity for them to show all their employees the different technology, the different solutions that various manufacturers produce for towing safety, and all the really cool things we talk about on the channel. But today's video is going to be extra special. I got my buddy Jake with me. If you guys haven't been watching the eTrailer YouTube channel, you've probably not seen him, but if you subscribe to that channel, you'll see him in a lot of really cool videos where he talks about the pros and cons and reviews products and things that they sell here, which is really interesting because a lot of folks would think you're like automatically going to give everything a rubber, thumbs up stamp of approval just because you guys sell a product. But that's not always the case. You guys oftentimes in your content talk a lot about things that people should be aware of before buying a product, that it might not be the best fit for their specific application. So that's really cool.
Yep.
So today's video is going to be really interesting before it starts raining on us, and that is we're going to talk about sway. Because I think probably one of the top selling items you guys generally sell would either be hitches, whether they're sway control hitches or non-sway control, whether it's a fifth wheel hitch or a conventional hitch. And we have two RVs set up over here, plus we have Jake's Ram truck. So what we want to do today again is talk about sway. And we're using Jake's truck as reference for this. But the first thing we want to do is talk about why sway exists and look at these two different RVs to show you why folks generally may have a different experience with one versus the other. So the first thing we'll look at is this Flagstaff Superlight, which on the front of it, this actually has the Pro Pride weight distribution sway control setup up here. Now this is a very, very interesting type of conventional hitch because this specific one is designed to eliminate sway from a conventional towing type application. Over here on the fifth wheel, this is Jake's personal fifth wheel. One of the things to keep in mind here as well is that he also does not have the traditional setup. He is running the Gen Y torsion flex gooseneck conversion. So over here we have Jake's truck. And Jake, you just have your 2 5/16 inch ball in the bed, I'm assuming. All right, so he can haul his fifth wheel. The reason why sway doesn't exist as much, and it can still happen, but it's very, very hard for it to actually happen over a pickup truck, is because once you have the goose ball coupled in the back, or you have your fifth wheel pin box coupled in the back, you have to look at where all the weight is going to be focused. So on Jake's pickup truck, if he's hitched up right here with his fifth wheel, right in the center, directly over the axles, where is all of the pin weight? Where is all of that front mass, that weight right there being focused on his truck? It's being focused right here. I guess I'm trying to line up with the camera. It's being focused right in this spot, which means where is it pressing down physically? Where's that energy being pushed down on the truck? It's being pushed down almost directly over the axle, the back axle. So what is that doing in terms of weight? Where is weight being transferred and being applied to the ground? Well, what's happening is since it's pushing directly down above the axle, it's pushing down on the specific tires that are connected to that axle. And because the weight isn't positioned behind the axle, you're not getting that teeter-totter effect of making the axle kind of the fulcrum or the center point of that energy. If you had the weight positioned behind this axle, then it would want to pull weight up from the front. Essentially, again, just like a teeter-totter where it would want to do this number. So weight would be removed from the front if any of the weight was positioned downwards behind this axle. So the way fifth wheels transfer weight to pickup trucks is entirely different than a conventional trailer. Now, the travel trailer over here. A conventional trailer positions all of its weight right here off of the back of the truck. And if we look at a side profile, you can see that that's probably at least 3.5 feet further back behind this axle, which again creates the pivot point being the axle itself. So now the weight wants to pull this way, and like a teeter-totter, it's going to remove weight from the front. So what ends up happening at this point is the more weight you add conventionally, and when I say conventional, I mean off of the back here, the more weight you add here, the more weight it is going to apply above the back axle, but it's also going to be removing weight off of the front of the vehicle. That's why weight distribution is so important. Now, a lot of people say, well, shoot, can I just throw airbags on a truck to compensate for that? Because let's say I have all this weight back here and my airbags are lifting up the back of the truck to help compensate. No, you're actually not transferring very much weight back. You'll transfer a little bit of weight, very, very little weight back to the front of your truck, but all airbags do is level out your ride. All it's going to do is bring the back of your truck back up to a level ride position, but what it's not doing, it's not actually preventing all of that weight that you've distributed to the back of your truck from being pulled off of the front. Some of it will return, but not very much of it. So the reason why you want to understand this is because this is going to help you understand how different weight distribution hitches and sway control hitches can benefit you. Now, whenever you are hooked up conventionally to a truck like this, and you have the trailer hitched up to the back and you have all that weight pressing down there, well, how can that induce sway? Well, we know that it can throw off weight and balance. We know it can throw off distribution of weight. So the weight that normally is not resting on the back and normally is resting on the front is now being switched around and moved as you add more weight to the back and you remove weight from the front. Well, a weight distribution hitch and sway control hitch essentially create a bowing effect between the truck and the trailer. Weight distribution is the process of essentially taking the truck and trailer and creating this arch effect by either using spring bars, chains. There's a lot of different methods to do it, but spring bars are the most common. And those spring bars, as they tighten down, they do this number. They create this tension right in the middle and this bowing effect. And that bowing effect applies weight back to the front and back to the back of your trailer, and you can dial that weight in. And the way weight distribution essentially works is the more you tighten those bars, the more you create this bowing effect, you're able to transfer the type of weight you need to the front and to the back of your trailer to offset the weight that's been applied to the back right here. So again, think of it kind of like a bow and arrow. You're tightening up that string so it actually arches like this. And that's what you're doing with your truck and trailer. You're creating this large arch between your truck and continuing all the way through the end of your trailer. And that's essentially how weight distribution works. And depending on how tight or how much pressure you have pushing down on the bars attached to your trailer is going to determine how much weight is actually being transferred and where that weight is traveling to. Now let's talk about sway control. So sway control is generally mitigated using friction for the most part. Most of your sway control hitches are going to have some form of friction. And what do I mean by that? It's really just two surfaces that are rubbing against each other to prevent movement. The goal of sway control is to basically make it very difficult for a trailer which is hooked up to the back of your truck to hinge, for it to do this number. Because if you have this travel trailer right here hitched up to the bed of his truck or the back of his truck right here, it's going to want to do this number, right? It has the ability to move and turn as he backs up, as he drives straight, as he executes turns. And the more you're able to prevent that from happening easily, the more friction, the more you dampen that ability for the trailer just to move and hinge off of this. When I say hinge, to be able to move like this, the more sway control you have in place. So if you have a conventional trailer hooked up to this truck and it's pulling it down the road, and the wind starts hitting the side of the trailer and it makes it want to move like this, well, if you can mitigate movement right here so the trailer can't move as easily like this, well, you're also going to reduce sway. And that is the goal of sway control. Now, there are a few hitches that do it a little differently. One of them is currently installed on this flagstaff, so we'll go take a look at that. Okay, so this is the Pro Pride hitch. There's a lot of folks who have purchased this hitch because it does something very unique in terms of how it mitigates sway. So again, most hitches that use sway control are designed to prevent this ball from easily moving like this whenever you're towing it behind a vehicle. And because this is your pivot point, this is the point at which your trailer is connected to the vehicle and it's able to hinge or make that pivoting motion, this is the area that you want to tighten up and you want to keep it from moving easily from the truck. So that's what friction comes into place, whether it's an equalizer hitch, whether it's, you know, a Kurt hitch or a Reese. Basically, those spring arms that go back press down on those little L brackets, or they have tension up here, or they use chains, and it basically makes it very difficult for your trailer to move like this whenever you're hitched up to your tow vehicle. Pro Pride takes an entirely different approach to it. They have kind of the wheelbarrow type mentality. So instead of grabbing a wheelbarrow by the center and moving it around like this, you have two handles. And those two handles basically give you the ability to balance out that pivot point over two independent pivoting points. And your pivoting points now rotate to here. So your pivot point is no longer the center part right here, it's these two pieces right here. So if you look underneath here, you can actually see you have pivoting points right here, and then you also have pivoting points up here. And now this is the area that you're actually turning your trailer from. So as this moves, you can see that as you turn, the trailer itself is turning independently of the hitch, which is really an interesting way of doing it. So your turning mechanism has actually been moved to these points right here. Now, does it mean by running the Pro Pride hitch that you will completely eliminate sway altogether? Not necessarily. Just like with the fifth wheel, you can actually still get some sway, but it's a different type of sway. And the sway at this point is going to be induced by just the physical force of wind or the other forces at play, not creating a hinging effect, but just physically moving your trailer, causing your trailer to become unstable down the road. All of these different hitch designs are designed to help mitigate sway, and it will eliminate the conventional type of sway you would get from this pivot point right here, but you can get, again, different types of sway, or at least the feeling of sway, through other forces that are at play.
We actually had a neighbor of ours come in and he was experiencing extreme sway on his 30-foot bumper pull toy hauler, and he had tried several different weight distribution systems and he didn't know why he still had sway. And when I say he had sway, it was like dog tail wagging sway. It was dangerous over 40 or 50 miles an hour. So he brought the trailer here to us, we put the Pro Pride on it, took it out on the highway, and it didn't change anything. So we started researching what the issue could be. Well, he had a Harley in the back of the toy hauler, he had a side-by-side in the back of the toy hauler, and then he had a quad in the bed of the truck. Well, the toy hauler was not designed to have that much weight in the back, because the front of all his compartments in the front were virtually empty. And we put it on a tongue weight scale, and he only had 400 pounds of tongue weight for approximately a 16,000 pound unit. So his tongue weight was so light that essentially it was barely making contact with the ball on the bumper of the truck itself, and no sway control was going to help him. So we switched the side-by-side and the four-wheeler in the bed of his truck, and he had approximately 1,600 pounds of tongue weight, which is what he should have had, and it drove like a dream.
And in some cases, you may get a toy hauler with the intent of getting a bunch of toys, but then you have to realistically understand what it's going to do. So, you know, it might be better for him just to avoid putting one of the toys in the back of his toy hauler, yep, right? And get the tongue weight that he needs. And the point of this message is, regardless of the hitch, these are designed to eliminate conventional sway. And that is sway due to wind, sway due to trucks driving by you, sway due to inclement weather and road conditions. It's not going to eliminate out of balance related sway, or it's not going to eliminate, you know, out of alignment axles. If your axles aren't perfectly aligned and your trailer wants to go this way while you're trying to tow it straight, it's going to create sway because the back's going to want to go at an angle while you're trying to pull it straight, and then it's going to correct itself and go the other way and come back the other way. So that's why it's so important to understand that sway control hitches do work very well when they're set up perfectly. And I don't want to get stuck on the word perfect, but it's very important to say that when it comes to sway control hitches, because a lot of people can dial in weight distribution with them, but they don't realize that if they're setting the hitch up wrong, you won't get the friction you need, and it's not going to work the way it was designed. You have to set them up near perfect in order for them to work the way the manufacturer has defined for them to work or designed them to work, right?
Yep. Yeah, step one is get your tongue weight within that 10 to 15% of the total weight of your trailer. Then you can properly set up your weight distribution hitch.
Yep, and if it's a friction style weight distribution hitch that uses like the little L brackets, you got to make sure that your bars going back to them are sitting perfectly flat on them. Because if they're angled up, if they're not sitting flat on those L brackets, then you're not getting the type of friction that you need to really prevent sway. So you really have to dial them in perfectly. And they're all going to be really heavy. So there are a few on the market. I think Anderson has one that's lightweight, but then there's reasons why you want to be careful even with that one due to some of the ways that hitch is designed. It may not perform the same as some other conventional style hitches, such as an equalizer, such as a Kurt or a Reese, or even the Pro Pride. So it's all about setting it up properly and understanding what type of hitch works best for your specific trailer. Because you can't just go out and buy one equalizer hitch and say it's going to work perfectly for every travel trailer you get. They have different ratings, and it's very important you adhere to the actual recommendation of those ratings whenever we talk about towing. The reason why sway isn't really an issue with gooseneck or fifth wheel towing, again, is where that weight is actually traveling down. But you can still get a certain type of sway that is not conventional sway. What do I mean by that? So a lot of people lift their trucks. And when you lift your truck, you're either going to use blocks, you're going to use a new suspension kit, you're going to throw different leaf springs on, you might use airbags, and typically folks will put a knobbier style tire. Now, when you get new off-road tires, the tread blocks can sometimes be 1/2 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch tall. And when they're that tall, the rubber compound itself can actually flex. So whenever you haul a fifth wheel, and not all the time, but a gooseneck, something heavy over the back, believe it or not, you can get what's called tire-induced sway. So when wind hits the trailer, your tire itself is flexing, and the tire's moving back and forth, and it can give you the perception of sway, which can be very nerve-wracking if you get that. That's one of the reasons why I usually avoid fifth wheel towing with a lifted truck, off-road tires, things like that, unless you're used to it and you know what to look for, you know the signs. Have you ever experienced any of those types of experiences with your fifth wheel whenever you're towing it on your truck?
So I have actually. These tires are different tires than when I bought the camper, and it's more of like a watery, like squishy motion. It's a different type of sway, but I had gone to a shop and bought a cheap set of tires for $800 for 4 of them, and they were not designed to tow this much weight because I just wanted to get a set of mud tires. When I bought these tires, I got F-rated tires that are 12 ply that are actually designed to tow this amount of weight. So it has a much stiffer sidewall, so the tire itself is not flexing anymore, and now I don't have that problem.
Yep. And you can actually tell by the tread blocks themselves. They're much larger tread blocks. And whenever it comes to flexing, it's going to be much more difficult to make a tread block that looks like this actually flexes easy. But then the sidewall of the tire can also flex because the tire's rubber and it has air in it, so it can move side to side. So going to a stiffer sidewall, a higher ply rated tire, reputable brand, they've generally put the energy and engineering into the tire to just help reduce any of that tire induced sway as much as possible, but you can still get it. And certainly if he had gone with a smaller wheel, so he's running 20s on here. If this was like a 17 or an 18 and he was running a really tall sidewall tire on here, you could even get sway again because that taller sidewall, the thicker rubber from here to here, can actually flex and it can give you that same feeling. So these are all reasons why it's so important to really pay attention to every aspect of what's happening when you're towing and maybe not focus in on that one thing. You know, I got a fifth wheel, why am I still getting some type of sway? You know, I have a Pro Pride hitch, why am I still getting some type of sway? You have to look at all the variables. When everything is set up perfectly, all of these products work really well. If you're still getting sway, even after you've set everything up, you need to check your weight and balance, you need to check your axles, you need to check your tires, you need to check, you know, how it's set up on your truck. You may need to check the truck itself to see, you know, maybe you're running a small lift kit, maybe the tires that are on the truck aren't designed for that type of payload. A lot of lighter duty trucks come with road tires that are just designed for comfort. And that soft, pliable rubber can give you some really strange feelings when you're going down the road, when you got a giant wall behind you and that giant wall is being hit with air, wind, you know, trucks driving by it, you know, curved roads, inclement weather, all of that stuff. So it's always really important to keep an eye on the total package, not just one thing that you think will fix your problem. Anyways, we have a lot more content out here. Since they had these two RVs kind of parked right here, I thought this would be a really good segment to talk about weight distribution, sway, the difference between fifth wheel towing versus conventional towing, and how that actually impacts the prevalence of sway on a trip that you may go on. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. Jake, as always, love having you on. We'll have you on more videos. We'll talk to you all again very soon.